If you have sold a property recently in Ireland, then it's important that you're able to calculate whether you have made a capital gain or a capital loss. I've got a couple of requests from people lately asking me to help them with their capital gains tax returns when it comes to selling a property. So I decided to put together a bit of a video on it. The first step, obviously, before you go and do your CG1 form, is you actually need to work out the correct capital gain or capital loss. So what I wanted to do was to put together a calculator that you can use that includes all of the different reliefs and different workings that you need to include in that calculation, such as your principal private residence relief, your indexation relief if you bought the property from before the year 2003, stuff like capital losses carried forward, also say your annual exemption, as well as all other costs that you may forget about, such as your auctioneer's fees when you're selling the property, all the legal fees, the stamp duty, etc., to make sure that you actually include everything so you calculate the correct capital gain or loss. So what we're going to do is we're going to step down to this calculator. There's a link down below where you can actually get access to this and get your own copy. So when you do get access to that link, all you need to do is go up here to the left hand side, click file and make a copy, and then you'll have your own version which you can keep and use for your own purposes. So thankfully there's not many inputs actually when it comes to this type of calculation. Firstly, what you need to do here is you need to add in the date when you acquired the property and the date which you disposed of the property. This will then automatically work out how many days you've owned the property. To calculate your principal private residence relief, then you need to actually add in the number of days out of that total ownership period, which it has been your PPR. And don't forget as well, I've added a couple of notes here just as reminders. When it comes to PPR relief, you can always include the last 12 months. If you have been preparing it for sale and you haven't been living in it as your PPR, then you can still include those last 12 months. So make sure and include that in this box here. Now, PPR relief will also be limited if you are using a portion of that property to run a business, for example. Then you need to kind of estimate what portion of that property is being used for a business. You can even work that out based on the floor space in terms of square meters and add in a percentage here, and that will then automatically feed into the PPR relief calculation. Another relief that I just mentioned there a minute ago was indexation relief. That's if you purchased a property from before 2003. This relief allows you to bump up the acquisition cost that you originally paid all those years ago by a certain factor depending on what year you actually purchased the property. So on a separate tab here, I have all the different indexation factors, and it doesn't run on a calendar year though. It goes from the 6th of April to the 5th of April every year. So you can pick out the relevant year for you. So for example, if you purchase your property on say the 1st of May 1985, then your indexation factor here will be 1.713. So once you know what the indexation factor is, you can just copy that and you can paste it into the calculator here where I have this indexation factor cell here. Just can copy over that number. The default will be set to 1 if you don't qualify. And once you then update that number, this calculation here over on the right hand side for the indexation will automatically be calculated. So I'm going to set that back to 1 for this example. Now, that's kind of the key parts to update first, and then it's just a matter of adding in the sales proceeds and all of the different costs that you faced. Firstly, at the top here, the sales proceeds. This then is the agreed price with the other party as part of the transaction. Then the cost of disposals, they can be deducted off, such as your auctioneer's fees and legal fees that you pay. Your acquisition price then, which was the original price that you paid for that property, plus the legal fees and the stamp duty that you did pay at that time as well. And then if there was any indexation relief, this will be automatically added in here. Now next up, there is enhancement costs. So maybe over the years you have made improvements to the property. Say for example, you've added on an extension. Well, the enhancement cost that you have added there to increase the value of the property, the cost of it there, that can be included in your capital gains calculation as well. So don't forget to take account of that. This will then automatically calculate whether you've made a chargeable gain or loss. After that, we'll deduct off the PPR relief, which is calculated based on the number of days which we have stipulated here on the left hand side of the calculator. Then our annual exemption, everybody's entitled to an annual exemption of 1270 every year. Also, if say you are selling a property that is jointly owned between you and your partner, then you can double that annual exemption. If, for example, you made a loss in the past on another property, maybe an investment property that wasn't your principal private residence, then that loss can be carried forward without limit to be offset against your future gains. So in this instance, I can offset it against the gain that I've made here, particularly because I only have a limited amount of PPR relief, because the property was not my PPR for the whole time that I owned it, and also 20% of it was used for business, so I can use that loss to offset the chargeable gain that I'm going to face here. So that's been deducted off, as well as my PPR relief and my annual exemption. That leaves me with a taxable gain then of 33,177, and then that's automatically multiplied by the 33% to give me a tax liability of €10,498. Now, just on top of this as well, I've taken those numbers that I've used in this example and I've populated them onto a CG1 form, just as an illustrative example. If you want to follow along, if you have a similar kind of situation where you want to populate your calculation onto the CG1 form, this is how you go about doing it. So you can take a look at this in your own time. I'm not going to go through it in detail on this video, but it's quite straightforward. You're only literally putting in the consideration that you have sold the residential property for. You'll see that a lot of the form is not applicable. You just need to know where to put in your chargeable gain, then know where to put in any losses that you have carried forward from prior years, know where to put in that personal exemption that you're going to claim. This will work out your net chargeable gain, and you deduct off as well the PPR relief to come to the net gain that's going to be taxed at 33%. And then you put in the amount of tax then on the last page that you're going to be paying, and that's pretty much it. Then depending on if you are filing this form a bit late in the year, you might have to fill out this last page where you just put a bit of a self-assessment there in terms of the taxable gain and along with the balance of tax payable for this period. So that was just a quick video just to take you through this calculator. I hope you find it useful. If you have any suggestions as you're using it to make it better or improve it, please let me know. I can always update it. It's just a Google Doc, so it's very easy for me to just log in and make changes to it if you suggest anything. So you can always reach me at my email there, which I'll always leave down below as well. And if you have any other suggestions for more content like this, leave me know down in the comment section.